proud, amongst other things, mihi to one of my PhD students who's now one of our professors, to mihi to Tanya and her team in DCT, and we should be proud. But more importantly, as I look around this room, I'm reminded that research, amongst other things, should be considered as whakapapa. And I mihi to haupuru, and more importantly to Peter, because Peter held a huge dream. And if Peter were in this room this morning, he, like me, would be proud, simply because we can see that our dream has been realised. So for those of you that are not aware, I will be retiring at the end of this year, but will continue to support and supervise my success at this university. And I mihi to each and every one of you who will continue to do that, because research, supervision, scholarship is indeed whakapapa. But when we ask our own questions, they're an act of defiant revolution. Because if we don't ask them, somebody else will. And as I've said in our preface, all research is the product of a socio-cultural context. When others who are not part of our communities ask questions about us, we should not be too surprised that we end up with answers of which we're confused about. So for those of you who have the courage, who are defiant, who are confident, who are willing to ask the questions that our people wish to have answered, thank you. Kia ora.
Aroha no he wai, I pupu ake ana, he awa he mapuna mai ana, I roto I te whatu manawa. Ko tōna matapuna he honu, aina ia ka rere anō. Ko tōna matapuna he honu, aina ia ka rere anō. He tai timu, he tai pari, he tai hope, he tai hoa, he tai nui. He tai nui. He tai nui. Kia ora. Tēnā koe pare o tira tātou, he hui mai nei. E mihi ka tika ki tō mahi rangatira, mai tō tīmatanga tainoa ki tēnei wā e te papa. I think I speak on behalf of all of us, especially those who come through, how much aroha we have for you and how much you have done for us, and I raro iwe a marae. So, tēnā koe pare. This time now, I'd like to pass it over to Matua Mark to say a few words from the research school, and then we can get into fire because she's meant to start it a minute ago. That's what standing up means.
Kia ora, toiroa. Tihei Māori ora, e nā mana, e nā reo. E rau rangatira mā, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Nau mai haere mai ki te wiki rangahau. Nō reira, nau mai ki te nā hua, a Tāne-te-wānanga, the Māori Research Symposium. Me te mihi, me te mihi, me te mihi. I know I don't have much time, but I just wanted to acknowledge all of the work that's gone in for today. And this is an extremely important part of our overall celebration of research in our wonderful university. And for me, this is the most exciting program, and congratulations on putting this together. It's a wonderful tribute to the growth, as Pare has referred to, of research and of researchers. And of Māori research and Māori researchers at our university. So I want to acknowledge all who've gone before, especially to acknowledge Pare and his important leadership to bring us to this point and to set us on the path to the future, where we have more Māori professors, where we have more Māori PhD graduates, where we have more influence and partnership with hapu and iwi across the motu. This is something we are committed to. It's one of the greatest contributions that we can make as a university. And so I want to acknowledge and to thank you and to mihi to all of you for your commitment, your mahi and your work, and all that is yet to come. So kia ora koutou, ngā mihi nui, kia koutou katoa.
Thank you, Matua, for your words. And at this time, I think we can skip right into the session. This lady needs no means of an introduction, but I will note that she is known as the People's Auntie. Can we just give a warm round of applause for Professor Ella Henry? Ara mai whai.
Kia ora ngā mihi. Oh, that's flash. I didn't invent that. Sure. Sorry. I want to talk to you about, I want to put my glasses on because here's a little something that you should all be afraid of. Turning 70, immediately everything stops working. I literally cannot see the front row. So, welcome to you. Anyway, so what I want to talk about is Māori Indigenous academies, because once you become scholars, that's going to be a much more important part of your life. And I really want to promote this notion of academy. So, what am I going to talk about? I te tīmatā me mihi atu kia koutou katoa, ko wai au, ko Ngāti Kahu ki Whānau, rātou te rāroa, me Ngāti Kuri o ku iwi no muri whenua ahau. I come from the far, far north. You know, that part of the country where the only decile 10 school is in the bleached suburbs of Kerikeri, and the rest is a third world country. That's where I come from, a third world country. And when I was born, there wasn't even electricity there. But guess what? I'm now a professor of entrepreneurship in a department that isn't called entrepreneurship. That's another story. And director of Māori advancement for the business school, of which I'm immensely proud, because we have a business school that is acknowledging the importance of Māori advancement. My PhD, thank you, Pare, he had to read every torturous draft. I wrote a lot, sorry about that, which focused on Māori entrepreneurship and screen production, because Māori are very entrepreneurial people and we are very successful in screen production because it is storytelling. And storytelling is how we passed on our science for thousands of years before the written word was introduced to us only 200 years ago. My master's looked at management and focused on Māori women in leadership. I started that in 1991, and I said to my supervisor at the time, I want to look at Māori women in leadership. And she said, isn't that an oxymoron? Because 30 years ago, there were very few Māori women in leadership, which is extraordinary given our history and our culture of gender complementarity. Papa and rangi. And so I started my journey 34 years ago as a single parent, first in family, coming to university because I'd gotten kicked out of school when I was 15 because I was incorrigible, and it is absolutely true. As the principal of Kelson Girls said at the time, Ella Henry, you are bad. You are ineducable. And for 15 years, well, it took me 15 years to figure out what she'd said, she was kind of right. And when I finally came and realised not only was I smart, but there was a place for Māori people in this bastion of privilege and intelligence, I have changed the world for my whānau. Because they all know me, and if I can do it, they can, because they're smarter than me. So that's a little bit about me. What I want to talk to you about is Te Māori, from colonisation to Renaissance, and how out of that Renaissance has emerged kaupapa Māori, not just as a research methodology, but as a set of principles about how we do what we do as researchers, as scholars. And also I want to talk about Māori Indigenous academies. This is an academy. It's a gathering. It's a group. It's a network that is founded on the notion that Māori Indigenous thinking has value, because those values play out in what you are going to do when you graduate, when you finish, when you go into the world, when you become scholars. And those academies that we are part of not only give us strength, but they enhance Indigenous scholarship. You are all now, all of you Māori Pacifica researchers are in a waka called Indigenous scholarship. And you know what waka needs? Waka needs kaihoe. It needs people to row the waka. It needs people to steer the waka. It needs people on shift day and night so that we can make the journey. So you are all part of the waka of Indigenous scholarship. And that Indigenous scholarship has the potential to enhance your capitals. And that's where I want to finish today. So, Te ao Māori. I mean, we all know this, don't we? Oh, no, there's a few people who don't know this, actually. Māori are the Indigenous people of this country. We may have got here in a boat, but we got here first. Just remember that. Our society is tribal, kinship-based, underpinned by a notion of collectivism, which actually, a few people who looked at collectivism once called primitive communism, because it was a state that did not require a structure or an infrastructure. The state was controlled by our values and our culture. It was a gift-giving economy founded on reciprocity. And I don't know why that is in teeny tiny writing, because I fail my students who use font that size. But anyway, clearly this was done under extreme duress. In a land without formal government, it was the culture. It was the tikanga. That which is tika, the core etymology of tikanga, that which we practice as culture, is tika. Everything that is tika translates into tikanga, and it is that tikanga that guided us across the Pacific, or Te Moana Nui a Kiwa, to this new land of the long white cloud, to naming every valley and every bay and every river and every mountain, and giving the stories about it and the science about it. And that was unfortunately fundamentally changed by the arrival of outsiders. But, and the reason I say we were the first nation is because Te Whakaputanga, which we signed in 1835, declared our sovereignty. And we understood what sovereignty meant in 1835. So it seems ridiculous to me that 4.5 years later, we would give it away. No. Te Tiriti o Waitangi is very clear. The wording is very clear. At the end of that first clause, we give to Te Kuini o Ingarangi, Te Tino Rangatiratanga o Rātou Whenua. Not Mātou Whenua, not Tātou Whenua, Rātou Whenua. Their land. We gave her the right to rule her lands, which was terribly magnanimous, I thought, quite frankly. Unfortunately, that did not work for them, and the consequences have been extraordinarily disadvantageous for us. We have found over the last 184 years and 6 months and 4 days, but who's counting, that hasn't worked out quite so well for us. Colonisation, in fact, proved to be disadvantaged, and thank you for your mihi to the Kingitanga today, because the Kingitanga was formed in 1858 as a political move to unite our people against encroachment by a government that was hell-bent on our destruction. And here we are in 2024. Some things haven't changed. By the 1870s, we were experiencing the very worst that came out of the New Zealand Constitution Act of 1852, which gave to the settlers the right to create a parliament and then exclude us and incorporate repressive legislation and begin raupatu, expropriation of our land. By 1900, we were expected to die out. Poverty, disease, sorry about that, and a range of other negative consequences. My parents were born around 1900, and so I saw through their eyes the misery that had been inflicted upon our people, and the hope that it had almost died out. But by the 1950s and the post-war era, a massive urban migration transformed Māori society. A new generation of young Māori, some of whom are still rattling around today, began the assertions for tino rangatiratanga, aspirations for self-determination, which turned into what Ranginui Walker called the Māori Renaissance. And those decades of political unrest and protest have changed Aotearoa New Zealand forever. And by the way, thank you, King Charles, for calling us Aotearoa New Zealand. Bless. Because some people in this country don't like that name. I keep saying, you know what, if we were called Aotearoa New Zealand, we'd come out before Australia at the Olympics. Just think about that. Haere mai, Australia, haere mai. I mean, that alone is a reason to become Aotearoa with a double A. By 1975, the Waitangi Tribunal, and let us not forget, this is an extraordinary judicial entity that for 50 years has been documenting the most egregious acts and coming up with the most profound, sympathetic, genuine resolutions, which most have been accepted by government, some not. And that's an interesting story all on its own. But the Māori Renaissance had begun, and it is predicated on notions of kaupapa Māori, the Māori way, the revitalisation of our language and culture. And I stand here speaking to you in English because the language was taken away from my generation as well. But as I remind people, I'm from the Catholics of Ngāti Kahu, you know, the wild rabble of the east coast of the far north. We liked the French. We were the ones who were saying, "Haere mai, Mr. Wee Wee." And that's why the English came. Now, just imagine if we'd had our sway at Waitangi that week and we'd refused to sign a treaty with the British. We had, in fact, perhaps signed a treaty with the French. I mean, yes, we would be a nuclear dump, but I would be prettier. Just saying. Just saying. But I am standing here speaking to you in English because we signed a treaty with the British. And that document, Te Tiriti o Waitangi, is about why we are all here right now. It is a precious document, and it cannot be changed, and it cannot be and must not be tampered with, because that is the reason we are all here. That is the reason I'm standing here speaking to you in English. But the revitalisation of my language and my culture is being born through my children and grandchildren. There is hope for the future. So what are these kaupapa Māori principles that underpin the revitalisation of Māori knowledge and science? We know, because of Linda Smith's book around decolonising methodologies, that kaupapa Māori is a research methodology, but it's actually more than that. For me, there are some key principles underpinning kaupapa Māori. First and foremost, kaupapa Māori research is for, with and by Māori, unless we invite you in. Kaupapa Māori research is not somebody ringing me up at the last minute saying, "Oh, can you be on our research project?" Like I'm the token brownie. That is not kaupapa Māori research. That must never be excused as kaupapa Māori research. It's for, with and by Māori. It validates our language and it validates our culture. It empowers our people to be able to do research that transforms our world. Is the most empowering thing that you can participate in. And that actually delivers positive outcomes. Those principles have not only guided my research for most of the last 30 years, they've guided my teaching as well. That's how I try to do my teaching. That's how I try to teach entrepreneurship, because we are very entrepreneurial people. We looked at the horizon, we didn't see dragons, we saw opportunity. That takes bravery. Those are the key characteristics of entrepreneurialism. Bravery and the capacity to take risks. And we did that. The people of Te Moana Nui a Kiwa for 3,000 years. We are part of a colony that stretches from Taiwan to Hawaii, to Rapa Nui, to Aotearoa, to Tonga, to Fiji, to Samoa. We are all tangata moana. And so those principles have guided my thinking, and have also informed my idea about the importance of gatherings. This is a gathering. These are just some of the Māori Indigenous academies I'm fortunate to be a part of. Native American Indigenous Studies Association, the World Indigenous Peoples Conference on Education, which we are hosting next year. Thank you, Pare, for being the driver behind that. I'm so proud of the fact that AUT is hosting, because the last time it was here was 2005 and the Wānanga hosted it. The Native Aboriginal Indigenous, because, you know, Indigenous people, we have different labels. So we've got to make sure we've got all the labels in the name. So the Native Aboriginal Indigenous Caucus of the Academy of Management, formed in 2011 by a group of us. There were 3 of us at the first meeting. Last year in Boston, there were 200 of us. We're like mushrooms. It's fabulous, because mushrooms add flavour to the stew, you know that. Indigenous issues, which is a part of the Australia New Zealand Academy of Management, and of course the group that we created last year, I Aramos, which a couple of 3, thank you again, Pare, for enabling 3 Māori PhD students or recent graduates to come along. This is even longer. The International Academy of Research on Indigenous Management and Organisation Studies. Launched in 2023, this year, in Ottawa again, and next year we're going to be hosting it here. Did I tell you that, Pare? Okay, I think that's why I left. Because what I have learned along the way is these gatherings, like the one that's happening later this year. I hope you've all got your abstracts in, to the International Indigenous Research Committee, held down at the Waipapa Taumaterau, University of Auckland, my old alma mater, and funded by Ngā Pai o Te Māramatanga, the Centre of Research Excellence. So these are bodies that have been created very specifically for our knowledge. These are entities that allow our knowledge to flourish. And so it is incumbent upon all of you scholars to try and become part of those academies, because what they do is they deliver capitals. And this is some work I was very fortunate to do over the last few years. We published a paper in 2022 about indigenous networking. We started looking at business networks, and then we realized every time indigenous people, and I want to see a show of hands, how many of you, if you did not attend, watched the tangihanga for Kingi Tuheitia last week? Hands up. Well, now I know who you aren't. Okay, that was a gathering of intellectuals, the conversation, the whai kōrero on the pai. That was our science being enacted by some of the greatest speakers in Te Ao Māori. That was an indigenous academy. And the capitals that we talk about are primarily social capital, which is the value of your networks, cultural capital, the strength of your identity, and this thing that we have in Te Ao Māori that most people don't understand is the most important of the capitals, spiritual capital. We may call it ihi, we may call it wehi, we may call it mauri, we may call it rongoa, wairua. These are words, many words in our language and our culture to talk about this most important. In a culture that did not have material capital, we didn't need money, we had spiritual capital. And when we gather, whether it is at an academy or a conference, I went to a powwow when I was in Canada, I've been to Matatini, I've been to the Koroneihana, I've been to places where spiritual capital is not only on show, it is literally coursing like a river through everybody. If you were part of that group of 10,000 that stood outside the gates last week, what was holding you up was spiritual capital. And your job as the scholars of the future, ngā mihi, nunui, kia koutou, mana rangatahi, your job is to feed that river, but be fed by that river, to be part of an academy, to be a proud member of the Māori indigenous scholarly world, because that is what we bring, but it's also what feeds us. And it is on that point I am going to close, because I have to go and spend a little bit of time sitting beside my cousin, who very irritatingly died on the weekend, and he was our chief. And very inconvenient. I shall be telling him off the whole time. So that's part of the gift of spiritual capital, of wairua, of rongoa, of mauri, of ihi, of wehi. And thank you for your patience. Kia ora.
E te whaia, he koha tēnei ki a koe. Wow, and can I just say, what a lovely way to wake us all up by giving us a growling and telling us to go out there and do something, whaia. But I always enjoy hearing you speak, and can I just say, kia haumaru tō haere ki tō whānau, I runga I te aroha, kia haumaru tō hokinga mai. Lots of love. One more round of applause, whānau. Professor Ella Henry, right there. Go well, Whai. And if you would like to ask questions, she said you can buy her a coffee and send her an email. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, unfortunately we won't have that question time. Nonetheless, we'll get right into the program. So if you haven't already got one of your booklets, here, go well, Whai. Please look into there, and you can see all the different sessions. I had some housekeeping, so those of you who are new, welcome. Those of you who are returning, welcome back. And it's Amazing Research Week, but in your program, you can clearly see who's coming up. Your exits, I think, Whai, did you pinch the, oh. She might have took the clicker. It's off to the tangi. All right. All right. That's okay. No, let it go. Yeah. We've got some out there. Okay, bear with us. Kaupapa Māori tēnei. That's all right. So again, in the program, please, if you go back out into the foyer, the bathrooms are downstairs. If you need any support or need help, there's some water over there, because I know we've been a lot of talking today. In the breakout session, so we're in WG, or the Sir Paul Reeves building, and note that the room is WG followed by the number, so this is room 3 or level 3. So if you're going out to anyone else, WG level 6, it's back out there over to the lifts going up, and you'll see all the different rooms where people are presenting. Please do, I do encourage you to go out, sit in those sessions to see them. Any session that's happening in here, don't feel like you're going to miss it. We're recording them so you can come back. So if you, the ones that are out, I do encourage you to go out there, especially when I'm on. Hopefully there's no one in here, so it's easier for me to present. But nonetheless, it's going to be an amazing day. Feel free to talk to our panel if you do get lost. Ben, can you just show your hand? The amazing Ben is our organizer. He knows everything about the program. And that's really it for the housekeeping. Is that all right? How are we doing for time? A few minutes? So now I'm just going to allow you to either stand up, reset, talk to anyone, and then we'll begin back in here in 6 minutes. Is that all right? So you've got a few minutes if you want to shoot off to your next session before this one starts. Ka pai.
Te Toiro Arapeta Williams. He's a lecturer in... The microphone's not working. Oh, here it is. It's now working. Kia ora. Tēnā tātou. I'd just like to introduce Te Toiro Arapeta Williams. Te whakatohia, nā tai, te whānau apanui. He is in the house today. So before we do any more, just would really like to give him a warm welcome of applause, please, whānau. Toi.
Kia ora te tuahine, yeah. Thank you, te whānau. It's like I was just up here. But mihi ana kia koutou. Lovely to see us all. And thank you for sticking around. I'm going to start with a waiata. So, aroha mai, if I hurt your ears. But no te kāinga. So here we go. Give me some sexy lights, please. Ooh. I hara mai koe I Hawaii ki, mā tō toru ki te whai tangatatanga. I Hawaii ki, tauriku rā. Hawaii ki hāwere, Hawaii ki mano mano. Mō hau te tapu o Muriwai. Ai tui tarangi tui honei tui ai te pape takoto nei tātou. Tira tangata e hui mai nei Māori ore kia tātou. Thank you for being here. A privilege to present on some research that means a lot to me. But although it's just me standing here, it's the many and the multitudes back home in a small place called Opotiki down on the East Coast. And today we're talking about capturing stories and pūrākau, something we do quite well. And we all know our uncle in our stories where the fish gets bigger every time. And when we think of those stories, majority of the time there's something in there and what they teach us, or something that you are being challenged to never forget. And that's sort of where we're going today. And it's documentary, but I'm talking about what it means to document, and what it means to document from a Māori worldview and a Māori way of thinking and knowing. And so this space here is Opotiki, the first documentary that we should know, which is whakairo, where we carve our stories into wood to capture a story. This one here is of Tarawa, traversing the Pacific Ocean and landing here at Pairata, just where I grew up in Opotiki. And it talks about him coming across with these two pet fish, known as Opotiki mai tawhiti, or the pets from afar. So from the inception of our people, we've been telling stories. And they last and they stay alive because of the value we as the descendants put on those stories. So today's about that. And inside the PhD, I looked at my own whānau narratives and how we can give value to them to make sure they last for when my grandchildren and their grandchildren are here talking about it 100 years from now. Why? Because these stories are important. Click. We practice this so many times too. Okay, can you just click over there? Thank you, brother. So it starts here. And in the documentary, we captured these beautiful photos, and I have to acknowledge my supervisors, Professor Welby Ings, Associate Professor Marcos, and Professor Whai Hine Matau. I had this beautiful little collection of whānau and people who were there for me, who were on the ground, who are coming to these communities and capturing the stories. And for those who know this space, they might see a beautiful photo, rich in nature. But for me, knowing where this is, the Opotiki Harbour, or the only entrance into our township, it speaks to something a bit deeper. And so we're going to play another a story associated with this picture. And if we can get that to go. Oh, is it working now? Click.
Te whakatohia.
There we go. Turn them up.
We once were seafarers, business people.
Can't hear it.
Through this harbour, we welcomed the world. Whakatohia ki te ao. But you came, uninvited, with your steamboats loaded with colonial soldiers for one purpose.
Oh,
Not to trade,
we try that from the stop.
but to steal. Te whakatohea. We once were seafarers, business people. Through this harbour, we welcomed the world. Whakatohea ki te ao. But you came, uninvited, with your steamboats loaded with colonial soldiers for one purpose. Not to trade, but to steal. You came to steal our land. You came to steal our history, to steal our houses, our rivers, our forests. You came and you stole our beliefs. You stole our businesses. You stole the very bonds between our hapu, the love between our whānau. You took the pride from within ourselves, the colour of our skin. You took our language, you took our chiefs, and you hanged them from the throat until they were dead. You took our ancestors. You stole my grandparents. You stole my future. You stole me. But you could never take our mana. You could never take our whakapapa. And you could never take away the truth.
When you're in Opotiki, and it's a beautiful small community, but over 160 years ago, atrocity came ashore, just like many other tribes in Aotearoa. And I grew up in this town, and these stories I learned a lot more about as an adult. And I always wondered why we didn't quite have our reo, we weren't quite connected to our marae or our spaces. Because I'm the first to say I was baptised Anglican at our church, I was raised Catholic, and I'm a practicing ringatu. So I'm looking like I'm religiously confused. But in all those spaces, they were hope for our ancestors, for a new space and a new life, because the world we had just come through, and it started back there in the 1860s. And it talks about when Governor Grey sent down some troops to Opotiki, and in our town, it led me to the archives, and I'm searching through with my iwi, finding out a historical account. This is down in Wellington, and learning so much about what happened, because we're going through our treaty settlement right now, at this time, about 5 years ago, 5 years of research in my doctoral studies. And I'm learning about me, as this young boy who was born and raised in this small town. But I had to go away to come home. I had to leave Opotiki to find out who I was, to go back. I felt that quite ironic. It led me to find this page here. This is the original notes of Chief Justice Ani, the judge who presided over the case of Moko Moko and others, which is what he titled it, for the murder and killing of Reverend Volkner in Opotiki at the church. Now the story is quite deep. Volkner was a government spy, telling government about Opotiki's preparations to support the kingitanga, talking about how Māori were rising up, new faith were coming through our town with the ho-ho, pai marire, and of course ringatu. And Volkner was quite worried that he was reporting back and sending letters back. And so our people found out and thought that was treason and enough to warrant his dismissal from our community. And so he left, and he was told not to come back. Unfortunately, he thought he had the power to come back home. And so they hanged him. They put justice upon him. And of that time, and it's a very, very deep story and a hard story to understand because there's so many elements with what was hanging at Rangi Aowhia, Rangiriri, Kiri o Paterau, and what happened to his family over there, and seeking revenge or utu upon all the churches, because the churches were a place of sanctuary or safety. Unfortunately, in our community, that wasn't to be the case, because there was no trust. And so on this page here, and it states the verdict, the Queen versus Mokomoko and others continued. The verdict found Mokomoko guilty, Hakaraia Te Rahui guilty, Paura, Penetito, all those who were in their court case. Justice Ani said they're all guilty after only 4 days of trial and 1 page of notes. He sentenced their lives to death. He's all on a witness account. And he talked about all of them should be sent to the Mount Eden gallows just up the road from us here. The Rock, which was operating right up in until 2011. That same Hiwahi tapu tēnā. But they would be hanged in there by the neck until they were dead, and then they would be buried in jail. And so that story that changed the life of my iwi for the rest of its days, right until this very moment. And so when I think of this story and this ancestor Mokomoko, and I asked, well, who he was and how do we relate to him? Because it was his words that said, "Tangohia mai te tauro I taku kaki kia waiata hau I taku waiata." Take the rope from my neck so that I can sing my song. That song of innocence. But we wouldn't know that until 150 years later. And so it begins here with my mother and her big, beautiful smile. She's known as the lady down at the Opotiki courthouse. Well, she's been upgraded now, and she's in the district. She's in Whakatane. Front desk, so she knows everyone who comes in and goes out. She knows everything about you. Kuia te whāriki o tēnei kaupapa. Ko mokomoko, ko te wārana, ko ripeka tuarua, ko te wairemana, ko taku māma. The connection goes back. Proud to be connected to a rangatira who fought so much with humility and dignity. And everyone in that photo there on the wall is my mum's angel wall. The irony of her hating marae is that yet her own home looks like a marae. A strong woman and a po of our whānau. That's the centre of it. And I know she can hear me now, so she's probably going to call me later. She's scary like that. But it leads me to this song. Chief Mokomoko wrote this as he was on the scaffold, and he sung it out to the people, knowing that this would be the only chance that he could send back his voice or his words to tell his story to his people. This is his documentary, or what it is to document. And the traditional songs of Mōtetea. Take the rope from my neck so that I am able to sing my song. This rope around my neck steals me to death. These people lie. They sabotage the truth, condemning me to this grave. With the flash of lightning, my life is to end. Like a tornado, I am furious and vengeful. Why have been brought upon this ship? A burning fear emerged as I was taken to lands afar, bound in shackles, as the sun sets over powers in Europe. Their words are the ones who said I must hang in these fishnet gallows so that I might meet with the lid of my coffin. Right or wrong, I am to die. Farewell, Pākehā. I die an innocent man. So be it. Anei tana waiata. Turn the lights down. Kaore te tākiri e tu tēnei ki te moenga kei te hori
Te tangata tēnei au kei te raweke he pono te ki nei taku rau i ka ki te moe ngā koe kei te tangata mate kau au ki a te uira whakarewa te titiro te huki ngā mate ia hamuti he ware noa te eke noa i te kai puke he ahi mumura te panga mai o te whakamame kawe ki tā whiti hei ho mai mō te meka te rerenga o te rā ko te kawana kai uropi mana eki mai me tau au ki te tau whati hei tūtaki ake mō te kuaha o te pau aka haramai nei au ka tūraki mate ki te moenga I learned his waiata as an adult, but to know that majority of our people don't know his waiata, and it hasn't been passed on for a few generations. So how do we keep those stories alive? How do we pass that knowledge on? So making a music video as such, or bringing it into the modern context, creating rauemi and resources, and giving value to something that otherwise majority of our community doesn't quite value. And it leads me to writing a book, knowing, and it's composed by him being proud of his words and understanding them and diving into them a bit more. Because it leads us back to our ancestral lands here in Whakatohea, at Mākio, which is our ancestral mountain, Waiawa, which is our river, and the story that happened out here when the government came down in the 90s, when I was only 1 year old, I think 92. And I talk about this tree, and this was a beautiful story handed down by Matua, the late Whārihuia Milroy. And he told me of a story when I was overseas of how he was here, reporting for Te Karere, I think. And he was at this apology where the government came down and was pardoning moko moko. And it was a big thing because they had just been over to Ngāti Awa and were doing a pardon there. And so Uncle Manny Tuaringi Moko Moko, who was leading that claim, who was a war veteran, 3 world tours, and then came home and then fought the government. He's there with our nanny Wairemana, who my grandmother's named after, and the Honourable Sir Doug Graham, and he's holding this tree. And it would be the koha that he passes over. And I was just watching this film, and it's in a film called Two People, One Land, during this research. But I thought of this moment when Whārihuia told me the story in 2014, or we're overseas at a conference, and I remember him vividly saying Koro Manny had stood up and they gifted a tree
But when Uncle Manny went to receive it, he told the government that the tree would die because they never brought back the land to plant it in. And when I think of that moment and understanding truly what happened, it was just a piece of paper with words on it. They still had the land, they still had the authority over it, but on paper, Moko Moko was pardoned. So they continued to fight the government for his understanding. And it led me to go home more and to understand, well, this is our marae, and Uanaku, you heard yesterday, a lot of our whakapapa comes here, a lot of our family events happen there, my 21st, my Nani Wairemana's tangihana, Koromani's tangihana. So it's important to us because of those strong connections. But I knew that the university, I was at university studying about who I was, but there's another space and another university that holds a lot of our ancestral knowledge. And when we talk about passing down knowledge through songs and waiata or carving, when we talk about what it is to document, well, those waiata and those compositions, as we know in Te Ao Māori, are a big part of it. So it led me to go home and join Opotiki Mai Tawhiti, our kapahaka, led by our rangatira, Dr. Te Kahautu Maxwell, Uncle Dudu, who's a staunch and strong man. And if you're whānau, you've got to work extra hard. And so everyone in there, as he calls it, we are ngā Pōtiki Mai Tawhiti, as the children of home, and I went there with a key objective to learn about who I was, to learn how to compose, to learn why we write songs about those spaces. And kapahaka is the form, as we all know, especially in Te Ao Māori, is one of the only forms we can still keep those traditional songs alive, just like Koro Moko Moko's Mō Tēteo. And so Matatini campaigns, I didn't really want to do the stage. My body's about 50 kilos past that date, and my knees are getting shot now, and I'm still playing rugby, so it's quite a hard world. It's like it's a world of battling to tell your story, and you come off there. It's ko pau te hau. It's only 30 minutes, but those 10 weeks, 12 weeks, going up to those moments. But just to make sure, yeah, there I am there. Those moments really kept it alive, traveling 600 kilometers. I said to Uncle Dudu, you know, Māori are crazy. I don't know who would do 600 kilometers round trip from Auckland to Opotiki. Then I would pay you money to get abused by my own family, to get told again, then to jump back in the car, drive all the way back up here, and then go to work. But we do it year after year, the last 6 years. So either we're mad or we believe in it. So it led me to being a part of the kapa, learning more about home, but then getting opportunities to give back. It took me to being the master of ceremonies at our settlement, which divided our people. Whakatohea, people who are stroppy and debating. But it was Koro Ranginui who writes about making a stand. Don't sit on the fence. Stand up for what you believe in and tell us why. And so here on the 27th of May, 2023, I signed our treaty settlement on behalf of my whānau and our children still to come, because this is a pathway of rongoā for our people. Those of us who grew up in Opotiki and know that town know that it's in dire straits. It's in desperate need of something remarkable to change our ways of thinking and doing. We're losing generations. The Opotiki I left 13 years ago to come and study here at AUT is not the same Opotiki I left. I was a proud head boy of Opotiki College. 600 plus students at our kura. That number is half today. And we have to ask why, and what are we doing to change it? And I think this is one of those opportunities we can change that. So it leads me to doing all this research about home, and then of course inviting my iwi to come to Auckland to check out all my rangahau, which is the worst thing you can do, because when you ask for one, well, the whole iwi came up. And they're all part of the examination process. They're all calling me doctor before even the examinations happen, because it's a new world to our people. But what it did say to me is, well, one, I better pass, but two, they're the real examiners. Outside of the institution, whether when it lives on 100 years from now, it'll be for them. And when we think of research and we think of documenting, who's it for? The majority of the time it's for our family. And that's what got me through. So we're singing, we're celebrating, we're being a part of that community. And as you know, it started with a song when Moko Moko sung here in the Mount Eden Gallows in 1866, where he talked about, okay, you've got it wrong, but it's all right. So be it. In all his humility, and he allowed it to happen. Then 159 years, 160 years later, his direct grandson hears his story, hears his song, and writes a reply to him. Because as the song and story started, well, it started with a song, I thought it would be too right to end with a song. Now, I'm no means a composer, nor have I written more tea before, but I knew that could be the ultimate gift back to a man who's been sleeping away from our iwi for the last 160 years. And so this was our reply, with help and support from many of my friends. I'm whānau. A coughing throat does not easily sing. Your people, moko moko, are weeping and left confused and divided by your execution. In a blink of an eye, you were executed as Ani emboldened the lies that killed you. Te whakatohea, the once stroppy and stubborn, silenced. Still mourning 150 years later, you were wrongfully executed by hanging from that pūriri and the place where lives are squandered, Mount Eden, where you were buried in jail. Te wārana, do not wake from your dream. Your legacy has been upheld by your descendants. Your father's remains have been found. Those workers who worked tirelessly during the sacred ritual, the hahu, to return you home. From your death, we were gifted a tree without land. What a travesty. Now we are burdened by that rope of tragedy. However, we live and hope. Now you rest in your homelands. Rest in peace, koro moko moko. Let your song be sung. Nō reira, anei te waia ta whakamutunga. I wrote this for him. Oh, is it there? Awkward. Oh, Auckland University of Technology. Are we there? Kia ora.
Kaore hoki nei te kaki whakaraua e tangi noa ue ake nei tō tira e moko po raru ana ki mohia te upoko iri hori ana ni e tangi noa mo te rau tau i te wahangu ngāti tohe i hekea koe i te pūriri mautini maurahi mau moe mai e hika i a toka tio pehi a rawati aua ka e oho e te wārana i o moi a tō ati e koro mana hei rapu ia ko iwi tapu mana hei hahu mā te tiratapu. Murua te mate hara kore, tui ringa rau pā me kote. Rā kau hei utu o ne kore, para kore, 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 rawa e te tiki. Atu nei taua taura tare tare ki a whenua. Ai koe i te papa tipu e au. Tō moi, tō waiata, e moko, moko e.
And there was reason to write the waiata and use his rangi, simply because they speak to each other. And a beautiful moment that I just burst out in tears when my whānau came up. They mightn't have knew the words, but they knew the rangi. And when they were standing next to me, kia rongo ki te wairua e rere nei. He was there with his presence, so it was lovely to have him. So where does it end? Well, it ends here, down in Parliament, where Uncle Dudu's been told to sit down. And now we're going to get a shirt that says on there, order in the gallery, order in the gallery. But it took us to a moment of us coming to a resolution after 159 years, 160 years, to have our settlement heard and a future where the Crown apologised again, but this time they gave back some land. And in true fashion, there I am, just to make sure if you couldn't find me. Yeah, I was there, whānau. You know, but again, it's the 100 years from now when they're looking back. Nō reira, ko au tēnei mihi nei a koutou katoa. As I leave here, I suppose I ask you, what is it to document your story and to tell it with your truth? Because this is a mokopuna of mokomoko saying what a future holds for all of his descendants to come. Nō reira, anei ngā uri a muriwai, uenuku, tēnā koe, te whanaunga, mihi ka tika ki a koe. It's our generations coming through, but he was there on that journey. Koutou katoa, tēnā koutou, kia ora koutou katoa. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Kia ora toi, on behalf of everybody here, we feel your words, we feel your wairua, and just by another note, Pina Tito was my whānau as well, so kia ora. Before we move on, let's give another big round of applause for Toi. Way!
Thank you.
Kia ora.
I'm here a week.
And now it's kai time, so if we can make our way, please, out the doors to your right. No running, just walking.
Thanks, Hazel.
Thank you.
Taste. Kia ora noi te whare nau mai hoki mai. Did you have a good morning tea? Yeah? Ka pai? Did you bring some in? No? You went smart like me? I brought in a couple cookies. Because tēnei wā te whānau. It gives me a great privilege to introduce our next speaker. He rangatiri roti tēnei ao te pāpāho. Noko nei tētahi wā. He's been around the motu, a face of the motu, and a handsome fella at that. It always helps. And in our book, and I just want to read out a bit of his mahi because, as I said, he mahi rangatira. So, matua Julian Wilcox, nā puhi te arawa. Julian is a veteran broadcaster and former television executive in New Zealand and a founding member of Māori Television, o whakaata Māori tēnei wā. He has promoted Māori-centric media for nearly 3 decades, so he must have started when he was 1. Ho mai te piki paki paki, tēnei rangatira, matua Julian, kia ora.
Tuatahi ake mihi ana kia tātou. Ki tā tātou hui, kia Tāne-te-wānanga nāna i a tātou i pahere ko tahi te atanei. E te horangi e te amokapua pare tēnā koe. Ko rongoa hau i te kōrero, tērā koe te iri ake i o pūtu, i te mutunga o tēnei tau. Nō reira, e taku rangatiro o mua, pare tēnā koe. E te ahorangi tāni a tēnā koe i te karanga. Kia tā mai tēnei harei te meo ngā puhi o te arawa nahe nahe. Māwaku taku whaia no ngā whiu, no roto ngā tiporo. No reire rungi tērā whakaaro e mihana kia koe. Te toiroa, ki te au te mahi rangatira te whakatoa hea i te wiki kua pahure. I te hui mate o te ki. Tātou e pai nei, I can see faces I remember. I just saw Camille. I haven't seen in a long time, but Camille was here when I was lecturing at AUT, doing whatever I was meant to be doing at the time, barely turning up on some occasions. And then Tania came in and took over and then and righted the ship, you know, along with many others. So it's a privilege to be here. I haven't been at AUT for a long time, so I forgot it's a technology university, so I don't have a PowerPoint. Instead, I've got a whiteboard and a pen. But what I wanted to talk about, and hopefully I hit the mark, and I know we're finishing at 10 past 11, so I'm going to talk about, hopefully aligned to the topic about partnerships for impact. But the title of what I'm going to talk about is called Kia mau ki te tūranga o tapu Aotearoa. Now you'll notice a couple of words in there. Tapu Aotearoa being chief amongst them. It's a quote from a man called Ngākuru Pene Haere, who was a scholar of the North. So much so that Apetana Ngata sought him out in 1918 to help him with ngā mōteatea. And all the ngāpuhi taitokara waiata and ngā mōteatea came from this man called Ngākuru Penehare. He also is the man responsible for reminding us, ngāpuhi te taitokara, that it was Pōroa, the great warrior of the North, who settled the peace between te taitokara and Waikato Pōtatau after the battle at Mātakitaki. Ngākuru Penehare was a Catholic, interesting guy, but he was dedicated to whānanga Māori. And he said, he mea rāhui taku tinana ki te tūranga o Tapu Aotearoa. I was set aside to learn the whānanga that originates from the place called Tapu Aotearoa. So what I'm going to try and do is provide a bit of a methodology, really, or a framework for Māori research, which I think requires us to rebuild our connections with our brothers and sisters in Te Moananui-a-Kiwa. And I also think we should be thinking about, when we look at outcomes, so I know we talk about kaupapa Māori a lot in Māori research, but when we think about outcomes, that we shouldn't just stop at the front gate of our marae. That we should be thinking about outcomes not just for ourselves as our hapu or iwi or Māori, but for our indigenous brothers and sisters across the Pacific. Evidenced by the way in which the Pacific communities came together last week at Tūranga Waiwai, and for those who didn't see it, I thought their orators were amazing, most of whom spoke Māori. You put the shoe on the other foot, I don't think we can do the same. And it's interesting because our reo and our tikanga and our wānanga comes from Te Moananui-a-Kiwa. So the first part of this methodology that I'm going to put up, aligned with Partnerships for Impact and Māori research, is called Tapu Aotearoa. So, Tapu Aotearoa, for those who've never been there, is on the island of Raiatea in Tahiti, Māori. It's said to be the cradle of what they call Polynesia. I'm not a fan of the phrase Polynesia. I think it's a Pākehā construct. But anyway, I prefer it to be the cradle of Te Moananui-a-Kiwa. If you talk to navigators like Hoturoa Barclay Kerr, Jack Thatcher, Matua Heck, Busby when he was alive at the time, there is a staunch belief that Tapu Aotearoa is our origin point. Now, interestingly, if you watch Scotty's program Hawaiki, or Origins, you may want to debate what I've just said. For us in Ngāpuhi, we say that our kōrero originates from Tapu Aotearoa. If you read people like Buck and Ngata, they will tell you that Tapu Aotearoa was not just a sacred marae, but it was an institution of learning. Maiwi, when he fishes up Te Ika Maiwi, and we know the story, he says to his brothers, kia tau, waiho taku ika kia tere, leave our fish at the sea. Well, of course, his brothers get hiakai. So what do? They start chopping up the ika. What does Maui do? Maui gets angry. So what does he do? He jumps back on his waka and goes where? Well, he says he goes home. If you talk to Ngāi Tahu, ka hoki tika ki Hawaii. Where's the Hawaii he goes to? Well, in our kōrero, he goes back to Raiatea, and in particular to Tapu Aotearoa. And he sets up two whare wānanga, well, two names of one whare wānanga. One, according to Tainui and Tarawa, Hui Te Rangiora. The other name in our kōrero is Te Tūranga Tapu. Hence, kia mau ki te tūranga o Tapu Aotearoa. So what we're talking about here is wānanga. Right? So when we're undertaking research, and we talk about kaupapa Māori theory, and if you talk to Graham Smith and Linda Tuhiwai Smith and others, they will say that kaupapa Māori theory is a political activity that it represents and reimagines and reviews and reevaluates the ways by which research has described, presented, and defined us. My view is that kaupapa Māori should also be re-Māorified. And we should be going back to our ultimate point of origin, which in my view is Tapu Aotearoa. So what's the first step that we should do in our research? Well, obviously you have your kaupapa, right, your topic. And that is always the point at which you come back to in your research. No matter what you're doing, you come back to your kaupapa. Yeah, that might change over time, but your tapu-tapu Aotea is your topic. But what's the first thing you should do after that? Well, in my view, the first thing you should do after you've figured out your topic is you don't go looking for Best or Smith or Tregear or Cowan. You don't go looking for Smith and Smith either. In my view, you should go looking for kōrero tuku iho. So just like the navigator, you go out on a journey. And the journey, first step you go for is kōrero tuku iho. Now, I don't want this to be a debate about mātauranga Māori. I'm not an advocate of mātauranga Māori. I think mātauranga Māori is a university term. That's just my view. Because if mātauranga is our word, why do we call it mātauranga Māori? And the eminent Professor Tāne will tell you, ngoi and tuini, they talked about te mātauranga te Pākehā. So I think there's something in that that says to us, actually, mātauranga is the wrong word. I think what we're really talking about is kōrero tuku iho. An example of that are things like maramataka, te taiao, our practices, our rituals of encounter, the way in which we undertake the things that we do. Ko ngā kōrero tuku iho, heke iho, i ngā whare wānanga o tātou mātua tupuna. Now, I know it's hard to get access to people who were educated in whare wānanga, who know and understand kōrero tuku iho. But in my view, if we are to reimagine, if we are to redefine, if we are to represent and reevaluate the ways in which research has described us, the only truly kaupapa Māori way of doing that in the first step is kōrero tuku iho. So just like the navigator, you take your mauri, that is the essence of your topic, from your tapu-tapu Aotea. Haere, kimi, get the kōrero, come back to your topic. Ko ngā kōrero tuku iho, Māori, kātahi. Now, people have done this, right? The bit I think people have missed is he aha ngā kōrero tuku iho o te moana nui ākiwa. I think the fatal step that we've forgotten when we talk about kaupapa Māori rangahau, and we talk about the way in which we research ourselves, is we forget our point of origin. So we leave behind our Pacific brothers and sisters and their kōrero. You know, I've been lucky to talk to people like Tupua Tamasese and Nainoa Thompson. There are people who understand and know those traditional points of knowledge and inquiry and can present those in a way to you so that you can understand what those points of origin might be. So, for instance, where my auntie and I are from, we know that Nuku Tawhiti on Pō Ngā Tukimata Whāurua arrived in Aotearoa in 1054 AD, in September. Depending on who you talk to, it was either the 10th or the 5th. Now, we know this because that's what the kōrero tuku iho in Te Moana Nui Ākiwa says. That's what the kōrero tuku iho in Ngā Puhi says. Oh, and by the way, that's what the Chinese calendar also says, was that there was an event that led to the departure of Ngā Tukimata Whāurua in and around that time. What I'm really talking about is ultimate triangulation, right? But the point I think we miss is we know our wānanga came from the islands. We know Kupe is not Māori. We know Nuku Tawhiti is not Māori. We know Toi is not Māori. And we know Hoturoa is not Māori. So why do we stop on our kaupapa Māori research at the gate of the marae? So in my view, the second step on our research journey is kōrero tuku iho, moana nui ākiwa. Kōrero tuku iho, handed down through millennia and generations from the Pacific, whether that be Tahiti or Hawaii or Samoa or wherever it might be. Without that vital step, I think we fall over on our kaupapa Māori research. The next step we then should be doing is not forgetting the new research that has been undertaken that takes into account our literature. There are people here like Te Toiroa, who's just undertaken his research. So that is not to say that that is not important. Yes, we do kōrero tuku iho, Māori, kōrero tuku iho, moana nui ākiwa. But the literature that we now see, written by ourselves, about ourselves, for ourselves, and yes, for others, is vitally important. And in my view, that's the next step, is that we need to consider the literature that has been written by us after the arrival of the Pākehā. Now notice I'm talking about us. I'm not talking about non-Māori or non-Indigenous communities. I'm talking about us, our kōrero. Now we're lucky in that we can get access to some of that. For my doctorate, and the reason why I'm not talking about it is because it's about kupe and it hasn't been examined yet. So I can't really talk about it. But there's a lot of literature about kupe. When we think about kupe, guess which story we talk about the most when we think about kupe? We talk about te wheke a muturangi, right? Who was the one who promulgated that theory? S. Percy Smith, 1912. Now, yes, it was from apparently Te Mātorohanga and Nepia Pōhuhu and Te Whatuhoro jury from a traditional whare wānanga, even though the literature tells us that that was an extrapolation of the kōrero. It was S. Percy Smith who actually, up until 1912, didn't even believe in the wheke a muturangi kōrero. But in 1912, when the law of the whare wānanga was best and others and all those kind of fellows came up with this kōrero about the octopus. So much so that you have Māori now who say the reason Kupe came to Aotearoa was he pursued the pet octopus of muturangi. Mahu e te kōrero tuku iho Māori, mahu e te kōrero tuku iho moana nui ākiwa. And so we have people now who are writing kaupapa Māori approaches in their research that have written vast amounts and great amounts of literature about us, and I think that's important. And so in my view, the third step on your research journey, yes, is that step about our literature, about ourselves, post-contact, from 17, whatever it might be, or 16, whatever it might be, up until the present day. The last part, though, is the part that most of us look at first when we're undertaking our research. We look at what the people like Best said. We look at what the people like Smith said. We look at what the people like Tregear said. And let's remember, Tregear was a colonial soldier. He fought against Māori, then became a surveyor, then became an historian or an ethnographer. Best fought against Māori at Parihaka in Taranaki, then became a surveyor, goes to Tūhoe, and a point at which he dies in the 1920s, Frederick Augustus Bennett calls him the father of the Māori race. Smith fought against Māori in Tauranga, then becomes a surveyor, then becomes an ethnographer. Cowan is raised in Kehikihi, on the very land where Maniapoto takes his last stand. So why do we look at the Pākehā literature first when we're undertaking our research? Ultimate triangulation doesn't just mean we have to consider our traditional narratives and our histories as a part of the process. My view, ultimate triangulation in kaupapa Māori research starts with us and our Pacific brothers and sisters, and then our new literature, and then the last part is the Bests and the Tregears and the non-Māori literature that talks about us. Now, at every stage, we're doing what the navigators did. So, for example, Kupe comes to Aotearoa not because he chases an octopus, because he is a product of the whare wānanga in Taputapu Aotea, which in our kōrero is called Te Turanga Tapu. He is a student of the wānanga established by Maui. Maui who fished up Te Ika Maui. He knows that there's a land to the south. Why? Because for his process of traditional knowledge, kōrero tuku iho, he understands there is land in the south. He can see the pipi wharauroa, the koikoia, flying past at around about August, making their way to Aotearoa. He also knows that through his learning, through stars, maramataka, sun, through seas, tides, winds, and through land as a process of wānanga that every major navigator, by the way, kupe is not just male. And in my view, there's 5 of them. But anyway, I can't talk about it. It hasn't been examined. But navigation is not a male activity. If you want proof of that, look at how many female navigators we have now. So you know, through your teaching, that there is a land in the south. So what do? They leave Tāne-te-wānanga, go on a journey, land, see what they've seen at that land, bring it back, and they feed it back to Tāne-te-wānanga to keep the wānanga going. Now, people say that kupe came to Aotearoa in 1100 AD. Don't believe them. I mean, we know for a fact that Hotu Matua landed at Rapa Nui in 600 AD. So why do we believe that kupe came after that? Or even way after that? In the farthest reaches of Te Moana Nui Ākiwa, no one got here before 700 AD? I don't believe it. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that our journey should replicate the journey of the navigators. We go from our topic, kōrero tuku iho, see what we find, come back, we feed it back to our topic. Kōrero tuku iho, Moana Nui Ākiwa, out like a navigator, go back, we feed it back to our topic. At every stage, we feed back to our topic. Following that process, what happens? We set up our another whare wānanga, and that becomes our research material, and that is your raiatea, the place at which you can never be lost, the place at which your topic can never be lost, the place at which the outcomes of your research can never be lost. For just like the seedlings sown in rangiatea, e kore koe, e ngaro. So you can see what we've done in this research approach, in this methodology, is replicated the pathways of the navigators. We've gone to a certain place, discovered what we've seen, brought it back, fed it into our own wānanga, and by doing so, we get an increasing circle of knowledge, which becomes its own whare wānanga. By doing this approach, in my view, we're ultimately undertaking Māori triangulation, Pacific Island triangulation, kaupapa Māori research that gives breath and life to our topic. The last thing I'll say is that when we think about outcomes, we tend to think about the outcomes directly for our community, our whānau, our hapu, and our iwi. I would like us to consider what the outcomes of our research are, by the way, not just for our Pacifica brothers and sisters, but for Indigenous communities worldwide. What are the outcomes of our research for them? Now that makes it harder. It gives us more responsibility. It puts more pressure on us to make sure that what we are doing doesn't just benefit our own hapu. But you only get to do this once unless you're like Parakeha when you do it 3 times. So why not do it to its ultimate conclusion so that the benefits of what we do aren't just for ourselves, but for our Pacifica brothers and sisters and for Indigenous people around the world. Now, the reason why I did this for my topic, which again I'm not allowed to talk about, is because, once again, our reo and our tikanga don't evolve in Aotearoa. They evolve from another place. So if we are going to undertake Māori research, kaupapa rangahau, kaupapa Māori, we should not just think about ourselves at the end. When we get to our findings and our discussions and our conclusions, how have we benefited those other communities from whence we came, from whence our knowledge evolved, from whence our culture originated? By doing that and undertaking this ultimate triangulated theory, I think we live up to the creed that we talk about a lot when we talk about kaupapa Māori research, but in my view we fall over in certain parts, but for a wider thinking approach to kaupapa Māori research. The last thing I'll say is that if we believe that what we are doing is in the best interests of others, then I think we should do as our navigational founders did and undertook in their time. They would take a mauri stone from Tāne-te-wānanga, bring it to Aotearoa, implant it, take a mauri stone or a kohatu from Aotearoa, take it back to Tāne-te-wānanga and implant it back e taputapatea. Not only should we be thinking about the outcomes of these communities, we should be much more active in representing the outcomes of our research to those communities themselves in their own locations. Tika atu ki Hamoa, tika atu ki Fiji, tika atu ki Hawaii, tika atu ki Tahiti Māorearea. Kei riro ko ngā kōrero nei he kupu kaunoi hone. Engari ko tōna whakatinanatanga, ko ngā mahi hei hāwhina, i ngā iwi o te moana nui ākiwa. So whilst we're thinking actively about what the outcomes of the research are, how do we make that benefit real in real ways, in real terms for those other communities? I'm not saying I'm going to be successful in doing this in my own regard. All I'm saying is if we don't think about it, potentially we miss the mark of what can ultimately be achieved when we undertake our research in the first place. So as I said, the topic of this was kia mau ki te tūranga o taputapuatea. It calls on our ultimate traditions and points of origin, but it also encourages us to think about implanting the mauri of that kōrero back into those locations and communities and people, where they are and how they are. I think that's a really empowering way of thinking about what we do. I know it creates more responsibility. I know it puts more pressure on researchers. But as I say, we're in this really for a short time, but it should also be a good time, and it should also be outcomes focused for everyone. Hei taupuki aki te wahanga kia. E noho mai nei taku auntie. I talked about this Lai Aotea thing. We're from a hapu ko te Māhurehure. The Ngāti Whātuas will tell you that our name came from the battle at Moremonui, which we lost. And they're often fond of reminding us that we lost that battle. The name Te Māhurehure actually comes from Lai Aotea. If you land at Lai Aotea on the plane and you look up to the hill immediately beyond the airport, the name of that maunga is called Tuirai. The name of the puna at the top of that maunga is called Waima. The name of the people who look after that area are called Te Māureure. Now, I know all of us have got connections back to the Pacific, but the fellow who told me to undertake this research in the first place, Dr. Patu Hohepa, said to me, kia mahara koe, tātou. Yes, he ngā pohi tātou. Engari nā kupe, nā nuku tawhiti tātou I Māori mai ai. He moana nui ākiwa tātou. I think that's it. Go the Hurricanes. It's 10 past, and I said I'd finish at 10 past. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, kia ora tātou katoa.
Ngā homai te paki e te whānau. Tū tonu matua. And it's so nice to have a professional here finishing on time at a Māori kaupapa. It never happens. So mihi ka tika ki a koe te rangatira. Any questions from the floor, burning questions that you might want to whiua ki a matua I tēnei wā?
No.
Ka pai? Nō reira, Matua Julian, anei tētahi koha ki a koe, tō mahi rangatira, ko rongo mātou ki ngā kōrero, me ngā tohu ki a mātou. Nō reira, mihi ana. One more round of applause at te whānau. Very good. Nō reira, it's quite good. We've got the industry in here. We had Whai Ella in here telling us off this morning. We've got Matua Julian here inspiring us. And now we're taking the next stage to, well, break off into our little rooms, right? So as you can see on our program, you can see there, we've got a few on W6. They're all on that same floor, level 6. So we can break out into those sessions, and then we'll be meeting back here for lunch. Are there any questions? Very good. You are all released to go to your next session, right? See you at midday back in the foyer for lunch. Ka pai. Oh. Look at this. What's that time? Oh, we're on time again. God, bye. How was that lunch? Oh my gosh. I felt like I've gone up a flight of stairs, but it was only 4. Nonetheless, good to see you. Welcome back. Now I just catch my breath. Mihi ka tiki o tātou. What a beautiful day we've had so far. And I've got to go around and see in the rooms and see there just all those classrooms full with each other. So tēnā koutou, thanks for getting around to those sessions. Just acknowledging the person down the back with the laptop going off there. Tēnā koe, the Chancellor, mihi ana. Turn off your laptop, please. No, it's lovely to have you in here, but it is just a very warm welcome to those who are just joining this afternoon. Good to see you, and of course everyone else, welcome back. Here we are. A lady who means a lot to many of us mokopuna Māori o te motu, and we have a special session, and I just want to look at our bios in our books. And it was nice to hear Matua Julian, who's still out there talking to Nan, because he aha te kai a te rangatira, he kōrero. They can talk, these people. They can talk and they can talk. But it's he kōrero hohunu tēnā. The kōrero goes deep. And so he's out there, and it was lovely to hear him talking about the Mona Nui a Kiwa. And she wouldn't say this, but she does embody those elements of the Mona Nui a Kiwa. She's got Ngāti Parau blood in her. She's got Ngai Tahu, all those whānau from Kaitahu, Hawaiian, Cook Island, throughout Te Ao Māori and Samoan. So she really is tapu tapu atia in the flesh. And it is nice to have you back, Whai, because I know you've been away on leave for a while, so this is potentially your first time back to present. I mui te tini te mano ko haere mai ki te kōrero ki te rongo ki a koe. Nō reire te whare, all I'm saying, big round of applause for our whāia, and homai te pakipaki, Professor Tāne Ka-ai. Thank you, Whai.
Julian, o tēnā tātou. Aloha kākou, kia orana, kotou katoa. Welcome and Pacific greetings as well. I can't say which side I am. It's just a wonderful mix array of the Pacific that flows through my blood. But on this occasion, I want to start with really locating mātauranga in the context that Julian wonderfully presented to us. Is not mātauranga Māori that we're talking about. He referred to a lovely woman in my whakapapa, wonderful composer, whose legacy is a raft of songs, waiata, for the nation to enjoy. So I want to, it's probably appropriate today to sing, as we know that there's some amazing sort of meeting going on in the beehive around our thing called Te Tiriti o Waitangi. So I remember presenting at the Te Kohanga Reo National Trust, the Waitangi Tribunal. I was asked to represent or present on behalf of the kohanga on what it is that Māori pedagogy is about. What is whakaaro Māori? What is this thing that's emerging as mātauranga Māori? And I started with a waiata that was composed by Nani Twini at a time that she was expressing a sense of caution to all of us around the idea of mātauranga and the societal influences at the time that were, in her view, starting to usurp our knowledge away from and our people and our communities. And she saw the dangers in that. So I'll sing you a couple of verses of that. And I'm not going to translate, I'm just thinking that those of you who know will understand. Te mātauranga a te Pākehā, he mea whakato hei tinanatanga, mō waira, mō hātana. Kia tupatoi ngā whakawai kia kahara, kia kahara. Te mātauranga o te Pākehā, pati pati a ka muru whenua kia kahara. E hoa mā, ka mutu anō te tanga manawa oranga a oranga. Te mātauranga o te Pākehā, ka tuari i te penihana oranga. Hei ahara, hei patu mahara, patu tikanga Māori e, a Māori e, a Māori e. Themes, verse 1 is, what is this thing of Christianity? Is it not she's not criticising it, she's asking, who does it best serve? The second is that this mātauranga o te Pākehā, is it a guise to plunder our lands and render us homeless? And whose well-being does it serve? And the last verse is really around this mātauranga. It renders us to the pension. It renders us like we don't have jobs, or we just are eligible for a pension. But who does it best serve? Who does it best serve when we're questioning it's killing our language and our tikanga? Rules put in place to diminish us and our lifestyle and our thinking and our ways in which, and our well-being. So I wanted to start with that because Toiroa talked about that with his presentation with Moko Moko, and also Julian on mātauranga, and he mentioned Nani Twini. And I guess that that gives me great pleasure to introduce Te Ranga Tukutuku. Because Te Ranga Tukutuku, I talked to our Chancellor very briefly about how I ended up with this position. And in fact, it was that table over there that pushed me into speaking today as the author of this. So I need to have my glasses for this because it's not very big. But Ranga Tukutuku came out of this forum last year. So I sent an email to Pare, and I know that this is inside information, who was sitting in an airport, I think, or some lush place in France or somewhere overseas, and asked the question, are we going to have a symposium, a Māori Research Symposium this week, for Research Week? He said, of course. And might you like to lead that out? I thought, I wasn't going to, it wasn't exactly my thing, but I thought, well, why not? So a team of 4, some of them on that table, stood behind me, and we were able to organise a symposium that was the name gifted to us by Associate Professor Rachel Ka'ai-Mahuta, ngā hua a Tāne-te-wānanga. And so we had a great time. It was, great food, great presentations, great transfer of knowledge, lovely humour, lots of laughter, and a diversity within the audience. It was wonderful. So I thought we'd finish that now. I'd serve it back like not a big Serena serve. It was just a gentle serve back across to Mark and Pare, who served it back to me. And then I served it back again, and they served it back to me. And then I said, okay, if I'm going to do this again, could I have a little bit of pūtea. And the serve was delayed, the return was delayed a little bit, hey Mark. Just a little bit. And then I'm sure there was some sort of like hugga boogie going on in the background and thinking, and then it came back, yes. So with that, I could see from my involvement in working with Yakuba and the Pacific team in their enthusiasm to develop Moana I could see, well, what about Māori? And so I offered to do this, to write the paper that we would present to the Māori Professoriate for further discussion, endorsement, and then, of course, to present to Mark and Pare to see if for their final approval. And now it's no longer a draft, it's actually a document that has been endorsed. So I'm very pleased to say that Te Ranga Tukutuku, who's was gifted to us by Associate Professor Dean Mahuta, is the name for our Māori Research Network, which has come a long way and has got to travel a bit further. So at the moment, I can't see that screen, guys, though, with the name on it. So with my slides. Oh, okay. So I have to get right up. Like, I'm not 70, by the way. I'm just going to say that, you know, while we're talking ages, you know, that Ella's got that on me, so koina taku tuakana. I have to say that. And is that going? You can hear? Oh, there it is. There it is there.
Use that mic.
This one? Yeah. Okay. So the name it's a metaphoric name. It plays on the word aranga, meaning to weave, and tukutuku is our art of panel weaving. So he took this idea and he developed it, and it draws its meaning from the spider web, or the way a spider weaves its web. And we all know that if we're sitting in the wharenui, we always know that we never kill spiders in our wharenui, because they sit in the corners and they weave away, and they catch all the kōrero. And we're lucky that they're there. It's almost like a kaitiaki that captures all the kōrero. I love that meaning. And the weaves that create a network and the connections between members of the research network. And so Te Ranga Tukutuku is about us all being connected, weaving all of us in the network together. The Amanda Yates, who are experienced at research, and she presented today, to people like Toi, who are just starting off their journey as an early career academic. Marvellous. So we're all woven together in this wonderful web, and it's all about knowledge transfer, about sharing knowledge, and about helping each other, and also about how we generate that knowledge and transition that knowledge and work with that knowledge, as Julian said, with our communities and back to our communities, and not stand at the gate. Not stand at the gate. The origins of Te Ranga Tukutuku, it is really to do with a collective of Indigenous scholars leading the way in Indigenous research, which has its origins in whakaaro Māori. Now, this is a very important, I didn't use Mātauranga Māori on purpose. I used whakaaro Māori because when we're talking with students who are writing in te reo Māori, it is not just a translation. And so if you've got second language learners who are still on their journey to understand what it is a Māori mindset, in their writing, we have to try and help them to switch into a Māori mindset in terms of the way we say things, the way we phrase things, the way we explain things, and the way in which we can use metaphor, which is, you know, at the highest level of oratory, metaphor to describe contexts, which is beautiful. So those are the things that are important to us. Whakaaro Māori is a Māori mindset. Now, everybody in our tent, in our web, in our network, are all at different levels of understanding whakaaro Māori. Some are at the beginning of their journey. They have toto Māori, they're at the beginning of their journey. They're brave enough to self-identify as Māori, and they know that they're going to be embraced and supported by others on that journey. So they're at the very beginning, but they are Māori, and they will learn how it is, how whakaaro Māori is important to capture, to learn, to develop in that journey. Then there are others that are at the other end of the spectrum, raised by our communities, and we understand that that's what whakaaro Māori is. It's a Māori way of thinking. It's a Māori mindset. So it has its origins in whakaaro Māori, in our oratory, in our whakapapa, our genealogies, our oral narratives. All of those things are around ensuring whakaaro Māori is at the forefront. Our network is a platform for expanding that whakaaro Māori into disciplines. So, you know, we're all here. I know we've got Scott, Julia in Sport and Rec, Manda in School of Future Environments, Pare in Te Arapautama Culture and Society. We've got all of these different people for us in DCT and engineering and computer and mathematical sciences. We're all in different disciplines, but we're all connected through this web, through this network. And we all have a common theme of aspiring to whakaaro Māori. We have connections to the past. Some of us more likely to have, because we're older, more likely to have connections to the past, relationships that I know that I've built up over years since I was a knee-high to a grasshopper that I nurture. They take a lot of nurturing because they're important to us. They're important to me as an academic and the work that I do. They are important because they are like gold. They are like precious diamonds. They are like black pearls, although my brother says that there's none left in the ocean because, you know, I've got them all in my ears and on my hands. But you know, these relationships are just not the same as, they're not collateral. They are precious, precious, precious jewels, and they're forever there. They are sacrosanct. They are tapu, and they can never be traded on. They're not like a commodity. So are those connections to the past to help to us in the present and in our future, and making decisions and moving to the future. And also when we tell stories with one another, you know, I told a story to Pari just recently that, you know, in my university days at Waikato, true story, we used to go on these big trips with Tāti Moti Karetu and the late Wharihuia Milroy and Julian's father-in-law, who's passed now, heading to Melbourne, a few others, and John Rangihau, who was, to me, the ultimate philosopher, who really influenced my mind, he and Nene Ngoi Pewharingi. So we were on the way to Rongo Whakaata, to Manutuke, to the Korowa Stewart, and they could see that there was a tangi. And so the bus stopped, and Rangihau said, we can't go past here. And so we were all thinking, do we know the two papaku? Meaning, do we know who died? No, that's not important. We can't go past here. We're here as an ope, we have to stop. So stop we did, and it was at a marae called Takipu. And I remember that because we got off and we had to put on our number ones. You know, we were all in jeans and sweatshirts, and we had to quickly get our number ones on and do our kohi and the envelope, and on we went. And it was an old tradition that because of the oratory, high high oratory of stopping and paying our respects and weaving the whakapapa, the stories of who we were into that oratory, that takipu, man, they turned on the biggest feast for us. And it was almost like, please let us go because we can't go on at night just down the road to Manituke. They were just, you know, so hospitable. Now, Pari comes from that marae. That's his marae. He's the, you know, chief negotiator and all of those things at the marae part of managing that marae. But those are the things, those are the stories that unfold between us that are around those connections to our past that inform our present and our future. Yeah, so we know that tikanga is important. I've never forgotten that you can't go past a tangihanga, even if you don't know the tūpāpaku. This platform will honour and elevate Māori research and increase the visibility of Māori researchers and their work. It's very, very important. And I'm so proud to be part of this, to have been to wordsmith it, this document in a way that was inclusive and that really passed the approval of my colleagues in the professoriate. I'm so proud and I'm so humbled that to have been given this opportunity. So those are our origins, and where is our Māori research across the AUT? It's in business and law, and we have evidence from the research office of just what external funds that we bring in, from the Ministry of Justice in business, from MB, from Broadcasting Standards Authority, from Ngā Pai o te Māramatanga, Culture and Society in Tarapotama. We have Marsden's, we have MB Vision Mātauranga, we have Tech Encouraging and Supporting Innovation Fund, we have Manu Ao, we have National Heart Foundation, Ngā Pai o te Māramatanga, Biological Heritage Funding. Amazing. Design and Creative Technologies. We have Te Pukari Research Institute. I have to fly the flag there. You know, I'm sure there's some of my staff here. I have to fly the flag. Pūnaha Matatini, which is the core across at the University of Auckland. We have connections there. MB, HERA, BBHTC funding, HRC, Ministry of Education, Ngā Pai o te Māramatanga, Tech Encouraging and Supporting Innovation Fund, Ministry of Pacific Peoples, Australian Research Council, FORST, Broadcasting Standards Authority. So you can see we have contributed and continue to contribute in attracting external funding to this university, sustained over a long, long, long time. We're talking FORST now, that doesn't even exist. You know? And I know because I brought FORST with me to AUT. But it still shows that it's sustained over a long period of time. Then there's Health and Environmental Sciences, Taupua Waiora Research Centre, and I just want to do a big shout out and a mihi to Denise Wilson, who's had surgery, like several of other of us, I think, you know. And she and Isaac lead that. Te Hotonga Hapori and Sport and Rec with Scott and Julia here, mihi atu kia kōrua. Marsden's, HRC, Catalyst, Ngā Pai o te Māramatanga, MB. So, you know, these are just some of the ones that I know of, and there may be more. But it shows, you know, we're a force to be reckoned with, and we should be proud and loud. The frameworks that that connect us back to our strat plan. Te aronui, te whakamana, te whakaawe, te whakanui, and te whakaea. So it's clear that what we're doing is in line with what the documentation and the vision that's coming out of this university and management. And so I want us to remind us, and let's remember, in whakaaro Māori, what does that mean? Ko te pai ta whiti whaia kia tata, ko te pai tata whakamaua kia tina. Seek out distant horizons and cherish those that have been attained, holding them close. So what are our goals? We talked about our goals in the paper, and we talk about our goals in the paper. And this paper, now that it's got draft off, can be made available to all of us. It's to support all Māori researchers at AUT. It's to build Māori research capability at AUT. It's to support research that addresses Māori aspirations. I've been a great believer that we have to have in Te Pukari our community research agenda. No use just having some agenda that we then publish in, you know, in papers that go offshore. We need to listen to our communities and have them say to us, we need to have you do this mahi for us, so we can help improve our lives and our communities. That's really important. So it is about Māori aspirations. To provide leadership on strategies, policies and decisions impacting Māori research and researchers at AUT. So, you know, we're part of the decision making, you know, in all ways, I think that's marvellous. And we nurture them. We nurture the young. And I'm always now looking for opportunities to put other people, you know, in places to have that experience of being researching and to make decisions on committees to represent me as Te Pou Māori. You know, it's scary for them, but they know that I've got their back. That's what we have to do all the time. We have to share the space, create the space and share the space. To provide leadership and advice on strategic and operational issues relating to Māori research, such as AUT policies on Māori data sovereignty. I've got Mātauranga Māori there because it's inside the university. It's a term used inside the university and by tech. Different from Māori aspirations. And indigenous intellectual property. To provide leadership on research engagement with mana whenua and other iwi. I just want to say that for us, working in Vision Mātauranga out of Te Kāhui Poi Poi Rangahau, the research office, it is a joy to be working with researchers across the university. But there's a caution there, and that's that someone like me will need to be careful of the opening up of my relationships with iwi in a way that is just like a handover, a transaction. Because those relationships have been built over time. And so when you're thinking about your own research, and even Māori, you have to also start your own relationships with those communities. You know, Toiro is already, he's got whakatoa here, you know, and ngaitai all sewn up. You know, there's people like me who, I get the phone call when researchers hit Tokomaru Bay on the east coast and they're saying, do you know these fellas? Like, I'm supposed to know everybody that goes there from every university. But it's nevertheless true. Like, ask these questions. You know, you have to help our communities ask the questions. Otherwise, they are so generous, they give their knowledge freely, and hello, it never comes back to them to empower them. So I'm cautious. To provide advice on AUT's participation in national Māori research capability building programs such as it's supposed to be Piki Ake. I'm hoping that you don't see my error in Piki Ake. And to support Indigenous Māori knowledge research methodologies and best practice in alignment with Māori community aspirations of well-being and sustainability in Aotearoa for the benefit of future generations. So we're actually looking at 10 years out, all the time. 10 years out, you know? You know, I've been thinking about the new DVC Māori for a long time now. Who's out there? Who's got the attributes? You know, who are the, and we know those people. So, you know, and we're having discussions already. There's a lot of work to be done. I have to say that today is the closing day for, thanks to the little bit of pūtea, for someone that we'd like to employ. It's gone through Snap Hire to employ someone who can help take the next steps and help us take the next steps. Websites, visibility on Tuia, all of those things that Pare and Mark have suggested as a possibility. So, you know, at the moment, it's only internally advertised, but it looks like we might have to go beyond that. And that's another conversation that, you know, that I'll be having probably doing another pati-pati for more pūtea, but that's okay, another conversation. So the membership, there's a governance group, and I wanted to be clear on this, responsible for guiding and overseeing the activities of the network and the allocation of funding. So we're looking at these kinds of things. I won't read it, but you can see it for yourself. Early career academics, doctoral students, Māori professional staff, because we have Māori professional staff doing research. Now, Maya Hughes is an example of that, doing her PhD through Otago. That's research. Associate professors from each faculty, full professors from faculties, external Māori community advisor, and a Māori member of staff, a connection straight into Te Kahui Poipoi Rangahau, the research office. So the expectations of the whakaruruhau is to raise awareness, strategic planning and delivery, review and evaluation, representation, terms of office. Hui is such a good word. Hui can take lots of different forms. It can be wānanga as well. Admin support, financial support, voting and decision making, ground and indigenous values, with all voices to be heard and one vote only. So we've kind of looked at a skeletal system of things that we still have to organise. But you know, Rome wasn't built in a day, and professors had a full need, Tāne's had a full knee replacement surgery, and so that's why, you know, we're a little bit, not lagging behind, but we're just thinking, okay, we just got to ramp it up a little bit. So the general membership is through an expression of interest. We are committed to upholding the objectives, provide specialist advice, contribute to, and I'm going to stop here and say, no mai, hoki mai, hapurue, and contribute to and participate in all caucus groups, committed to contributing to Māori onto epistemologies, methodologies and research practices, and I really want to grab what our Julian has said, because I think that's the next level. That's the future of Māori research methodologies going forward. That is amazing, what he presented today. And committed to ethical research principles and practices, and of course, attend a general meeting. A little bit kind of, you know, formal, but it has to be a little bit like that to help us structure ourselves in, with efficiencies. And then there's affiliated memberships. Indigenous and non-Indigenous can apply to be part of us. Remember how Julian said, we are Māori, and we can invite people into the tent. A good expression of that, a good example of that, is the late John Moorfield, who was a professor in Te Pukaria for a long time. He was invited into the tent by Te Wharihuia Milroy and Sir Timoti Kāretu at a very young age, when he was recruited by John Rangihau and Ngoingoi Pia Whairangi, because they saw something in him. And he has given his life, he gave his life to supporting the development of the Māori language and resources and digital resources, which we have benefited from, and probably you have too. So that's an example of someone who's non-Indigenous being invited into the tent. And Parea is nodding, so yeah. Okay, so so there is affiliate membership, but no, you're not able to vote. You can participate, but you're not able to vote. And I had my 5-minute and my 4-minute hand up of the card, at the big card and the big lettering at the back, to let me know that you know, my time was up, or nearing, and that's all good. I noticed that I was the only one though in the whole of all the presenters that haven't had that have had that. I don't know whether to feel special or that my team just knows me. So I want to end with a whakaaro. Kia mahi tahi ai te waihoi, the movement of paddlers working in collaboration and in time. I am really grateful. Oh, no, what it was. I am really heartened, not grateful, heartened that we have the chance to be a Māori Research Network, one of the 5 in this university, because I know we won't let this university down. Already in my research and understanding the millions that we've brought in with external funding and the potential for further millions. Look at these people that are presenting, from the young ones to the wise ones with Amanda, you're there, I've been scanning the room, who continue to just do the work quite quietly, just get on with it, and all over the university. You know, we understand MB's going to be announced tomorrow. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but you know, I have one of those in, and Scott does too. So it's like, holy moly, you know? I know that we've got our collaborators here with Spark and Dragonfly with Henry, and people like that who have come today because they really believe in that kaupapa that we put in our application with AI and te reo Māori. And I have to say, a little bit of a whakahihi here, got over the science stretch, which we never thought would happen. Never thought, because in this government, te reo was, you know, being stripped. Oh, okay, not allowed to say those things in a public setting. But with the Chancellor here, I'm sure that I can just be a little bit naughty and outspoken, I'm sure, about this government and te reo. So, I want to thank you, and I just want to say, any questions? I'm passionate about this kaupapa. I hope you are too. It is, it's going to rock your socks. It's going to rock your socks. And I want to sort of say, it's a celebration, and I'm so grateful that you're here to listen. I now can send this paper out. A mihi atu ki a kōrua, e te hoa e pare, e kawe mai tēnei kaupapa, e tautoko mai taku tono ki a koe, ki te whai haere tēnei ārahi, ara koru ko koe, Mark, mo tēnei kaupapa, whakahirahira, mo te oranga o mo a tātou, mo a tātou a hāpori, tēnā tātou.
Kia ora.
Any questions? Better come before he takes the walk here. Any questions, any comments? No? I'm off the hook. Kia ora tātai.
E te whai ana I tētahi taonga ki a koe. You're not excluded from that. Thank you for your passion and being up here. And just one more round of applause e te whāna whawha. And hanga tuku. Tuku atu te aroha tuku mai. But you actually got one more job, Whai. We're getting our dollar out of you today. You're going to stay up here and you're chairing this panel. I'm not sure if you knew that. So you just noho tonu. And if we can get up into our last session now, Tammy and Huhana haramai ki mua. And in this session now, we're going to just segue in. Unfortunately, Zena's not here. She's sent her apologies, but we still have two amazing. Haramai ki mua. We've got a couple mics here, and we go right into this section.
Oh, I better get my glasses. Kia ora. Tēnā anō te hoki tātou katoa. I want to, this is an honour. I love postgraduate students, and I know you're, those of you sitting over there can't quite see me, but you know, I'll lean forward a little bit. These are people who grind their way through the system into postgrad and continue the grind so that they can be there first in families with postgraduate degrees, and they can influence change within their communities as well. I do want to acknowledge Zena. She's actually in preparing, doing some art pieces for her exhibition in Whakatane. And she's always a supporter of our writing retreats at Te Māhurihure Marae. And, but this is a time that she's taken out for herself, and she ready for her for examination or a viva in January next year. So kia ora Zina, mahia te mahi. I will then allow invite these lovely people to introduce themselves and talk about their work. And so please, I'm going to start. Hand the rākau. Oh, Huhana, would you like this one?
Kia ora. Ke te mahi a te mea? Kia ora. I'm slightly technically challenged. Aroha mai. Tēnā koutou anga mihi nui kia koutou kua hui hui mai nei. Tēnei ahi ahi te mihi ki a koe. E te tuakana, e te maraikura, te pau iringa reo, te pau iringa mātauranga. E prof tēnā koe moto tono mai ki ahau, ka haere, hei tautoko I tēnei kaupapa I te rānei. I just want to mihi tū to our whaia, kia ora, e te whaia, ki a koe e te matua e Don. It's beautiful to have our kaumātua with us, steering our waka, always keeping us safe, so tēnā kūrua. And kia koutou ngā kai whakahaere o tēnei kaupapa, Tairoa, Tāns, koutou Ben, kia ora koutou. It's a real privilege, and I'm feeling like, just looking at the breadth and the depth of the Māori research that's going on here in AUT across the board, feeling like a little ika in a puna at the moment with what we are doing, and very humbled to be part of this journey that we've been on with my research that has kind of come full circle, because I started out here when AUT was ATI, so that's really, really old, a long time ago, so feeling very old. And I did my undergraduate degree, actually, then went on to Massey University in psychology. And I met Prof when I was thinking of doing my master's. I'd actually signed up to Aotearoa. I hope there's no one here from Aotearoa, because ka piki te waka. But I went there to really just to whai haere toku ngākau, to find out more about reo tikanga Māori, and that's what I was on that journey to do when I was working for a national kaupapa around early oral language, and wondering what that meant for our babies in the first 1,000 days. The importance of that, and Professor was the only Māori on our board, on our advisory board, and I met Professor and we just started to whānanga. So when Julian was talking about Māori models of epistemology and how we actually study and learn, whānanga is our framework, when we have that whakawhiti kōrero. Think about the waka coming from tapu Ātea, didn't just come straight to Aotearoa. We had our tōhunga who went out on our wakatere. They did the rangahaua and they went back to the kaihautu, or they went back to that pito o te ao, and they ka wānanga, ka noho puku ki te whakawhiti kōrero. So to really understand the legs of the journey, they had to do that. And so we've been on this journey with this piece of research that we've put in our MB grant for, which we find out about tomorrow. And we're working with the wonderful Henry, kia ora, from Dragonfly and other organisations. But started out just a few of us thinking about how could the power of AI support our whānau at home to speak te reo, to stay in the reo, because we know that that's one of the biggest battles that we have in language revitalisation, is revitalising the reo in the home, in the kāinga. And for our babies to be able to access te reo, because they are laying down the foundations for te reo Māori in utero in the 3rd trimester. That's when they can start to access the rhythms of our reo within the language environment. But we know over 80% of our babies are born into English-speaking language environments. So the rhythms of te reo Pākehā are completely different from the rhythms of Te Reo Māori. So English is syllable timed and much closer to Germanic languages of Northern Europe. Te Reo Māori is more timed and much closer to the languages of Austronesia. And so if we trace the whakapapa of our tupuna, where they came from Tāne-te-wānanga, but finally, they actually came from Micronesia. Before that, they came from parts of Asia. And so it's no surprise that some of the languages of Austronesia are much closer to Te Reo Māori than English. So we need our babies to be hearing that. And we thought maybe we could leverage the power of AI to have a language partner in the home that was being informed by, culturally informed by those things. So AI, not just artificial intelligence, but ancestral intelligence, ancient knowledge intelligence. That's what we need to marry up to our endeavours to ensure that AI works for us and not just for the Googles of this world who have already grabbed our reo, homogenised or appropriated it and have started to homogenise it, which is really dangerous for us culturally. So we just started and we nearly gave up, didn't we, so many times, but like Julian said, when, like our intrepid tupuna, we don't just stand at the kēti, we go up that other taumata and up to the tihi or the maunga, we're going to keep going. And we've got lots of allies now, like the wonderful many people who believe that this is possible, that it is doable. So we're excited. And we've been out to our whānau from day one. Prof was ensuring that iwi Māori were at the forefront, were in the vanguard of what we were doing. They were ensuring that, when it comes to talking about data sovereignty principles and who owns the data, all of that. How do we safeguard our pūrākau and our ancient kōrero, and even the mita of our reo coming from all of our hapu. How do we safeguard those things? So partnering with lots of iwi and making sure iwi are at the table from day one in terms of the design was part of, the journey. So as a tauira, I couldn't have a better kaihotu of our waka. And so we're I'm just privileged to be on the waka at all. And but one of those kai hoi Prof talked about. And we hope that we can do something exciting in the language revitalisation space with AI. So kia ora koutou. We'll let you know how we go. If we get funded tomorrow, if we get approved, our funding, then we've got 5 years to work it out with these wonderful people. Kia ora koutou. Ngā mihi.
Before Tammy goes on, I'm just going to say, Huhana is a master's student, and she's doing her master's on an aspect of this, and then we're hoping that we will continue on into a PhD on the same kaupapa. So, kia ora.
Tēnā tātou e te whānau, kia koe whaia, ngā mihi nui kia koe, kia koe hoki e pare. Ko waiau, ko whangataua te maunga, ko kareri kura te awa, ko te ohaki te whare tupuna, he uri tēnei no te hiko o te ika, ko te raroa te iwi, ko Tammy Wilson, ulu nea o taku ingoa. It's a privilege to be here to be able to share my journey. I'm going to do things the way that I guess my pathway has taken, so it's going to be a little bit sort of titaha, ki wiwi, ki wawa, but to how I came here. And some elements may be relatable, and certainly I know these are some of the experiences that our own akonga as undergraduates have sort of arrived at their academic journeys. But a sort of a brief synopsis, as much as I can do, is that I actually started my academic journey in education. And so I actually qualified as a secondary school teacher, and my two teaching subjects were whāzire and Māori. Engari, the secondary school that I went to teach at was Otahuhu College, and they didn't need a Māori teacher, but they needed a science teacher in the bilingual unit. So then, you know, as we do, I'll teach junior science. It was sort of one of my minors, so I started into that space. And whilst I was teaching, I was also playing competitive sport. And so I was touring overseas, and it got to the point that I was playing in my last World Cup, or what I wanted to be my last World Cup, because, you know, the reality for us as athletes, as female athletes, is we didn't get paid to play. My first World Cup, we got paid $30 a day for an allowance. Hey, aha, we won the World Cup, so, you know, they'll never take that away from us. But it was during that time as an athlete and always seeking ways of improving and wanting to learn more, I became really interested in physiotherapy. It's fair to say, as an athlete, we spend a little bit of time in a physiotherapy clinic. And so when my sort of time, or when I determined that I was going to finish playing sport, I came back and retrained as a physiotherapist. And having worked for 10 years as a private practice musculoskeletal physio, a lot of what we do as healthcare practitioners is we want to, for want of a better word, educate our patients, or we want to help them be better. And so the educational component I've never lost that, and I've never lost that sort of yearning to improve myself as well. And so I came back and started my postgraduate journey, and I was nabbed by one of our kaimahi within the Faculty of Health and Environmental Sciences, and said, your grades aren't so bad, do you want to come and be a kaiarataki, or a postgraduate mentor for our undergrads? And that started another journey. So whilst I was doing my postgrad diploma, which led into my Master of Philosophy, I also started working in the space as providing additional academic support for our Māori students, training to be healthcare practitioners within in our faculty. That has moved into a full-time role, and so now I'm the Kaihau 2 academic lead within our faculty, Health and Environmental Sciences. But before I became Kaihau 2, as the kaiarataki, I have been so privileged to share the journeys and experiences of our undergraduate students training to be healthcare practitioners. And much like myself, our academic pathways don't always happen in a linear fashion, and I think that, you know, let alone the sort of external or additional commitments that our students face can determine or can impact on what their academic journey looks like. And it's through having the privilege of walking alongside our akonga in the undergraduate space that's actually led me now to my kaupapa as a PhD student, and really trying to identify what are those critical factors for our akonga training to be healthcare practitioners, for them to be successful in ways that are meaningful for them. And so that's the kaupapa I'm on at the moment, and sort of Hazel shared in her kōrero earlier the joys of working or submitting your ethics application. So that's the phase that I'm in at the moment. So I'm waiting to hear back from ethics. But in the meantime, I'm at least able to start working on a couple of the introductory chapters. So that's where I'm at the moment. Kia ora.
Any pātai? Any questions for these two comments? Okay, a little story. My son-in-law is parked at the lights, and my two mokopuna are in the back, in their car seats. Both of them, their first language is Māori, but they have picked up English from television and other things. And the only person who's allowed to speak English to them is my mother, because she has very rounded English, very good English. So the parents think they're going to get good English models. So someone's talking on their cell phone and the lights turn green. So my son-in-law says, "Oh, come on." And out of the mouths of babes from the back seat, a 2-year-old, or maybe 2 years, 3 months, 4 months, in English, with a very strong Māori vowels, goes, "Oh, come on." So I'm just going to say, okay, come on. There must be some comment around these, for these people and their work, and or some questions. No. Oh, sorry, man. Sorry, man. And then Pari, thank you. Amanda.
Okay, so straight away, having the transdisciplinary approach, and ensuring that really it's going to be iwi-led, that the people around the table that are going to be developing those policies and protocols around data sovereignty and how we're protecting our mātauranga. Oops, said the wrong word. Our mōhiotanga, he mea. E kōrero tuku iho, ngā taonga tuku iho. That really we believe that our iwi already have some ideas around how they protect that naturally within their rohe, within their tribal boundaries. And so partnering with iwi is essential to the approach. Where it's a force for good is just it's a multi. Whilst we all have our own disciplines, we actually have to be able to create new knowledge in this. So Prof has the wonderful job of being able to, or having to facilitate all of the expertise and knowledge around the table. And so far that's working, but it's a huge team and a global team. So so that's the approach. Like I said, just we ensure that the safety aspect is in the hands of iwi. Kia ora.
We don't have the answers yet. It's in the algorithms with all these wonderful scientists, and but we know what it can be, the potential, and definitely what it can't be. Kia ora. Pari.
If I may be so bold to make an observation, the gender balance is a little bit obvious in the Māori Academy. And I just wanted to offer you the opportunity to say something about both the challenges, but more importantly, the kaha that drives you as wahine toa, if not rangatira, beyond the intellectual, if you like. I mean, what is the core thing which is driving you? Because on the one hand, we can supervise students who simply see their research journey as being transactional, or we can walk alongside and with our students for the rest of their lives, who, based upon my experience, want to bring about fundamental change. I'm also conscious that at least one of you has been a full-time mother, trying to balance that with your career and now your study. can I invite you to be a little bit more personal on the things that drives you as a female wahine?
For me, and absolutely as a mother, kia ora, tēnā koe pare mo te pātai pai. Definitely it's about mokopuna futures. It is about ensuring that our pepi have their reo, have their tika, you know, like, as a mother, of course it is very personal to, and my tamariki weren't brought up in the reo, I'm a second language speaker, so just those things to know that if we can ensure that future generations have access to te reo as their first language, that's what drives me, and access to our culture, and that it's never a question for them, that's available to them. Ai. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Pari. I'll also take it a step further back in that my nan has always been such a strong influence in my life, and a way to honour her and the fact that she wasn't afforded the same opportunities that I now have. I say about my nan that she had a PhD in manakitanga, and because of that she has blazed a trail for not only my mother and then for myself and my brother to sort of pursue sort of in this space. But certainly, you know, further as a mama to my 3 girls, to be able to show them that anything is possible. And I also have a really, not a weight, but a deep responsibility for our akonga, and that sort of, you know, seeking to you know, this tohu will enable them better opportunities as well, so that, you know, we create the pathway for those younger ones to come through. So I don't feel that that's a burden, but that's absolutely, you know, a big driving force behind why I do what I do. Kia
ora. Could I jump in on that? Because once upon a time I was a long time ago. But I think that I remember graduating out of Waikato. Waikato actually insisted, Wharihui and Timoti insisted that, and negotiated with the Vice Chancellor and management, that because I was the first to come out of Waikato in Māori studies with a PhD, we should take it back to Ngāti Pro. Unbeknown to me that all this conversation was going on, and they won it. So the Vice Chancellor and the you know, the entourage with all their gowns, and they turned up at Pākirikiri. Well, actually it was an all-day event. So my relation from my great aunt, actually from down south, who was we just called her Auntie Fitu Tirikātane Sullivan. She flew up and raced up and up the coast, and we started with Te Ariuru Marae at one end of the bay, and with all the tamariki, because the kohanga was there. And then we moved to Waiparapara, which is the Ringatu one. We walked up the path and the bell rang. Then we went to the Urupa to say, you know, our respects. This was all choreographed by the people. And then we couldn't go to Tuatini because it was being renovated. Thank goodness for that, because it would have been, you know, would have run out of time. Then on to Pākirikiri. And so it was really the people who took charge of the situation. It was they made the rules. They told us where to stand. They, you know, they choreographed it, and everybody who had a degree came out with their gowns on. I'm reminded of that because at the end of all of that, the top table, you know, I mean, I have to say, the crayfish, the pau, you know, it was just marvellous. Kina for you know, it was just marvellous, because usually I'm a waiter on the tables, or cooking at the back, never the guest of honour. So at all of that, when all was done, I got all the kids running around, and someone said to these kids, oh, what are you going to be when you grow up? And are you going to be a doctor? Oh, no, we got heaps of doctors in our whānau. We got heaps of. And what do you think about, you know, your Auntie Tāne? She's, oh, yeah, she's going to be a doctor at Te Puia. It was like, and they meet the hospital. They said, oh, yeah, but we love her because she's the auntie that comes home with all the rare, all the rare in her pockets. And she's just Auntie Tāne to us. So all of those kids that, you know, it's normalised, going to school, going to teachers' college, going to university, going to trade training, going to anything that is about schooling, to come home and take over the kura. We were just talking about that. People who have, you know, the kids who are graduates now have come home and are now the principal and the teachers of the kura kaupapa. So those are the things that you keep doing as a mother, and as a, you know, my daughter's all grown up now, but she thought that, you know, she just sees, I was raised by my nanny and my mama and my papa. And it was in the same house, because that's the sacrifice that they make, you know, while we live in an extended family. That's what they know. That's what they, you know, they understand. They still love you as a mother. We used to have queue time. My mother would say, queue time today, go to the movies, have time with your baby, and then back to the books. So, you know, those are the things that we all know, and we have trials and tribulations. And we work through them, and then we get back on the horse and we go. I think one of the saddest things, and I know that there are other people who feel this way, is that my papa passed in the February before I was able to finish my PhD. And he had promised me we would have a month in Hawaii just being musos, just hanging out with the family, singing Hawaiian and playing Hawaiian music and dancing hula. And he passed before I finished. Those are the sorts of trials that I see happening with my students in that kind of context, that remain unspoken, only to the very closest, but you get back on and you rely on those friends and the hugs and the little biscuits and the cup of tea that's made and just put down in front of you to get back on the horse and continue. And those are stories that I think we all share. Kia ora.
And don't forget the email saying, hurry up, Hana, where's your...
Where's chapter 1, please?
Speaking of hurrying up,
Kamete te kōrero.
kia ora. Homai te pakipaki te whare. Thank you very much, koutou. He taonga tēnei. Here you go, whare. Kia ora. Lovely to hear the kōrero, true kōrero, and it is. It's a whole community, whare, that you're really trying to elaborate on there. And nō reira, mihi ana kia tātou. What a big day you've all had. Thank you all for making your time. Those of you watching at home, well done. Got the best space in the house. You can watch it all later, I'm sure. Hoi anō te whare. It's been a privilege to be here, looking after you all. This last section is just closing words and a bit of aroha. And we want to acknowledge basically all ngā ringaringa me ngā waiwai o te kaupapa. So all those little trinkets of how we had extra salmon and extra pork. The chairs were straight. The flowers were out. The team was out the back. That wasn't put here by the Magic Tooth Fairy. There was a team. And at this time, Whare is going to say a few words acknowledging two people who have been sitting on that back table looking after us this afternoon. And I'm going to run over there and grab two items. All right?
Okay, so the reason why I've been given this pahi is while he's got two bags. Kia ora, Whare. Okay, so...
One's in blue, one's in red.
Okay, so the person in blue, please stand.
That's you, Neelam.
Neelam.
Come on, love.
Yeah, come.
There's been something.
And the person in red, please. And the person wearing the paw tie, he didn't know, but the MC mostess with the, was it the hostess with the mostess, to please give a round of applause to all three of these people, please. And kia ora. Yeah. You know, I just want to say that workaholics who work in the background, I love working in the background because you get to wear an apron and cook fried bread, have laughs, and then, you know, all of a sudden you've got to get into your number ones and be out the front. But I love these people. They make our world rock. And without them, as professional administrative staff, and I'm looking at my girl over there as well, Tāne Smith-Henderson, you know, they doesn't matter whether you're a professor or not, they really are the bosses, and they look after us. And in DCT, I have to say that in our faculty office, we have such manaaki and great leadership, and we love coming to work to do the do in our lives. Not every day, because I like the hybrid approach as well. But this is what makes it work for us. So kia ora, and thank you all for that. You're going to wind up for the day?
Stay here.
Stay here.
Stay here, you can do karakia with me. Nō reira, mihi ana ki te whare. Thank you all again for being here. Thank you, Nan, for gracing us with your presence one more time. You're always welcome back here, even just for a coffee. Come in and see us. It's always nice to see you. O tira tātou katoa. Koro Donald, are you awake? It's always lovely to see you, Matua. I know you're retired, but it's our pakeke and our kaumātua walking libraries of wisdom. And every moment I have with you, I learn something. So I know I speak on behalf of the faculty. Hoki mai, hoki mai, hoki mai ra. You're always welcome back here. Anō rei te whare, ko tutuki ngā kaupapa. That's everything. One more big round of applause for everyone who spoke today. Well done, left and right. Yes. Also to John and his team of catering out the back. Just one big clap and acknowledgement for that. It was beautiful, eh? And of course, those of you, Philip and your team, all on the technology. Tēnā koutou. One more there. There it is. Okay. All right. I've been Toi. You've been amazing. Here we go. We're going to do our karakia whakamutungi tēnei. Ko rongo tātou ngā kōrero papai e pāniki ngā rangahau. Anō reira kia inui tātou. We're going to pray. We're going to do our DCT karakia. Here we go. Mauri oho. Mauri tū. Mauri ora. Kia tātou katoa. Haumi e, hui e, tae ki e. Okay. May the force be with you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, go well. You can go home now.